Okay, so actually today we'll be starting a new section. Last week we covered the listening part, and today, well, actually this week we'll get started with the speaking section. Okay, so it's a bit different from now on. The speaking and the writing section both are production sections, sorry. And because you get to produce your own thing, your own response. It's not so black and white. It's not multiple choice like you had in the reading and the listening. There's not exactly a wrong or right answer. So you can actually, it's a lot more flexible than the other ones. And it's easier to work on this on this section. It's easier to improve in this section as well. So you'll see. Now here in the speaking section, you'll have 4 tasks or 4 questions. You'll have independent questions and integrated questions. And if you're wondering what that means, well, those terms refer to whether or not you have to do something before you answer the question. So when you get an independent task, you just get the question and then you answer it right off. So you don't have to work with anything, you don't have to read anything or listen to anything. You just get the question, which is about your opinion, what you think about something, and you answer it right off the bat. But when you have integrated tasks, it's different because you're not really asked about you. You're asked to summarize something. So you need to summarize certain material that they give you. So it could be a reading part, it could be a listening, it could be both, but you don't get to give your opinion. You cannot give your opinion. It's not about you anymore. You're just acting like somebody who's just creating a summary. So that's the difference. And today we'll be looking at the independent question, the first one. Actually today and next class, so today and Thursday, will be for this one, this week. Next week will be for task 2 and task 3. And finally, the following week will be for task 4. Right, guys? So we actually have some time to practice. Any questions so far? Okay. Now I'm going to tell you a bit of how this section is scored, which is something that a lot of people ask. So since, there's no right or wrong answer, this is the criteria they use, the rubrics they use in order to score your speaking section. Actually, if you look it up, the ETS gives you like a summary of how they evaluate your score and what you need for each to achieve each score. So you can also go to the ETS website. I don't know. And you'll find the rubrics there. So you can check that out if you want. I don't know if we can do it, but anyhow, I can maybe send it to you. Okay, so here it is. All right, in the meantime, I have kind of summarized that and extracted kind of the criteria they used. So basically they base your scores on 3 categories, 3 big categories. The first one is content, which refers to how logical, how coherent your answer is. So that means whether you're actually answering the question, whether you're asking what they're asking you to do, whether you're doing what they're asking you to do. So for example, if they ask you about, I don't know, what you think of music, maybe you start talking about food or sports, then that wouldn't make that much sense with it. So that wouldn't be coherent, that wouldn't be logical. Now, if they ask you to summarize maybe a lecture, so whether you're doing it in the right way, whether you're not giving your opinion, whether you're not maybe missing some important information. So how well you're answering the question that they're asking. That's basically content. Now you also have topic and development, which basically refers to how organized your speech is or your response is. So whether you have an introduction, whether you have like the body of your response, whether you're using transitions to help you out, to switch ideas. Basically, you will be fine as long as you follow the structure of the template that I'll give you. And you follow, the usual structure of argumentative response, or if a summary in the case of the integrated tasks. So that's actually quite easy, I would say, to achieve topic and development. It's just practice, memorizing the structure, and that's it. Now, the hardest part will be language and delivery, because that includes a variety of things. So that includes fluency, so how fluent you are, whether you make many pauses, the speed at which you talk, if you're using many filler words in there, or filler words in Spanish or any other, or your native language, if you're repeating too much. So that's fluency, how fluent you sound. Then you have pronunciation, which doesn't necessarily mean that you don't have to have an accent. It's okay if you have an accent, as long as it's understandable. So as long as the listener can actually understand what you're saying without putting that much effort. So if you have this term here, listener effort, and that means how much effort the listener needs to put in order to understand what you're saying. So it really is important that you guys try to articulate the words as much as you can, that you make it clear, that you sound, clear, and you're maybe stressing the words in the way that you need to, pronouncing the vowels, the rhythm that you keep. So it's important that your answer is actually clear and understandable, which doesn't mean that you don't have to have an accent. Then you have vocabulary and word choice. So vocabulary, how extensive your vocabulary is. I think that's just, whether you're repeating the words or not. By the way, an e-rater is going to first evaluate your response, which is like a software that's designed to maybe count the number of words that you have, the number of words that you're repeating, transitions you're using, measure the that you don't repeat so much the words you're using, that you show that you have an extensive vocabulary, a range of words. And not only that, so not only do you need to have like a reasonably extended vocabulary, you also need to have the appropriate words, so that's word choice, how appropriate the words you're using are, how suitable they are for the task. So it's important that they're a bit academic, a bit formal, of course. So, and that they also, they're appropriate. So for example, if they're asking about work, and instead of saying the people that I work with, you say my colleagues, then that's a lot better, that's an appropriate word to use in the context. So that's word choice. Then you have this, which basically means try to sound natural. So don't, it's practice. I think you need, obviously you're gonna get nervous, but you need to try to make it sound a bit natural. Don't worry too much. You don't need to sound like a robot. It's not like that. So even though this is supposed to be formal and academic, it doesn't have to be that much formal, so you don't really have to use these weird, sophisticated words that nobody knows. Maybe you can try and use some in the writing part, try to show off everything you know and all the tenses and all the grammar. But here in the speaking, just imagine you're talking to a friend within an academic context, so maybe in class or in a discussion, in a debate, whatever. And obviously grammar, which is something that we cannot really do much about. You need to, have achieved a certain grammar level. It's also about variety. So the variety of structures that you use in your response, maybe if you're using different tenses, different types of sentences, that counts. Okay, so all of that is for delivery. So how you deliver your response. Okay, I'm gonna highlight it with another color. And here's the rubric that I was telling you about. Maybe I can download it and send it to you. So for example, here you have the description of what you should have in order to get these scores. Hold on. Okay, so this is converted, by the way. You know that the score is over 30. So you get the raw points and then they convert it into the points that you have in total, you know? So, but this is the maximum. Here's the general description. You have delivery, language used, topic development. So you can check it out if you want. All right, I'm gonna send you maybe I can send you the link. I think that would be better. Okay, guys. But any questions so far about how they score your responses? Okay, guys. So now we can get started with the first task, the independent question. So in this question here, I think maybe with some of you guys, we have already kind of seen this in the speaking sessions. So that's what we do, you know, in the speaking sessions. We practice the speaking. So with some of you that have started your sessions, we have taken a look at how this is, but now we're going to do that in a more in-depth way, right? So here in the independent question, what you will have to do is you will get a question, something about your preference about, you know, between two or more options, something about a familiar topic, like usually work life, academic life. Sometimes you have relationships, finance, technology, the environment. Sometimes you have something about the government or the law, policies, that kind of thing, right? Barely, but you also do. And so you will get the question, and it doesn't really matter what type of question you get. You're going to see that there are different types of questions, all right? You can have something like, do you agree or disagree with this statement? And then you have something like, working alone is better than working with someone. Okay, so in that case, you need to say whether you agree with the statement and you believe that working alone is better, or disagree and you don't think that working alone is better. You think that you prefer to work with someone else. Or you can have something like, do you prefer to work alone or with somebody else? Or you can have something like, some people believe working alone is better, while others prefer to work with somebody else. What's your opinion? Okay, so what I'm trying to say here is don't worry too much about the type of question you get, because you can do the exact same thing. If you think about it, they're asking for the same thing. You need to choose between those two options, working alone versus working with somebody else, and obviously explain why. So don't worry about the types of questions. Sometimes they give you more options, like, what do you think is most important in a friend? And then you have honesty, friendliness, maybe cleanness, or something else, and you have to choose. So it's always the same. You get to choose among two or more options and explain why you have chosen that certain one. Okay, and as for time, you'll be given 15 seconds to prepare your response, which is, to be honest, almost nothing. So I think it's just enough time to reread the question, which is something that you guys would want to do, and maybe think for a while, but it's not going to give you that much time to do much. And then you get 45 seconds to speak. So you need to answer the question in 45 seconds. Okay, guys? So that's how it works. You get the question, it's asking you to choose between two options, and then you get 15 seconds to prep and 45 seconds to speak. So any questions so far about the structure? All right. Now, some things I could say, some tips I can give you beforehand. The first one is that you don't have to worry too much about speaking from the bottom of your heart or having any previous knowledge. You know, supposedly you're not supposed to have any previous knowledge in order to answer these questions. They're supposed to be things that you would talk to a friend about, familiar stuff. So, however, you can always make something up. You know, if you don't know something, it's not really about what you're saying, as long as, of course, you're answering the question, but you can do it in many ways. You know, as I was saying, there's no right or wrong answer. So you can really do, you know, a lot of things. You can even sometimes subtly change the topic. You can make up any facts, anything you want. You can say something like, according to the New York Times, people who work alone tend to be twice as productive as people who don't. Okay, so you can make something like that up. It's not going to be a problem. They're not going to look into it. And so they don't care, you know, neither should you. Another thing I could say, try to be specific. And what I mean here is try to take it personal. Okay, a mistake that I've seen people make is, you know, they start talking in general about people. Like, I think people prefer to do this because they enjoy, and people usually like this. So that's why this is better. So try not to answer that way. Try to always take it personal. And instead of talking about people in general, talk about you, you know? So talk about what you prefer, what you feel, or how you feel, what you like, what works for you. Okay, so instead of saying people like to do this, say this works better for me and this is what I do, and so this and that reason. Even if it's not a personal one. You only get 45 seconds, you know, so it's not a lot. You don't really have time to say a lot of things, but you can, you know, you don't have to worry that much about making it so long or making it to the 45 seconds. Sometimes you can answer in like 40 seconds or 35 and then have a short conclusion. So it shouldn't, you know, you shouldn't talk about something so deep that you cannot completely elaborate. Practice as much as you can. You know that practice makes perfect. And when you're practicing, try to make an active practice. So try to record your responses, see how you're doing, see what you need to work on, the mistakes you're making, and of course, try to improve for next time. Don't just answer questions randomly, one after one, and then, you know, you're not going to end up changing anything. So try to, you know, evaluate yourself, see how you're doing, and that's going to help. And finally, one more thing, don't use anything that you're not so confident or 100% confident about. So don't use phrases, words, or grammar, I would say, if you're not so sure you can handle it. So I don't know, if you don't feel like you can use the third conditional yet, if you know that you struggle with that, then try to avoid it. You know, you're not, that's the thing about this. You get to do your own thing. So you can decide what to say, what to use. So if you don't know this word and you feel like using it for the first time in your response, it's probably not a good idea, you know, or the same goes for grammar or phrases. So it's better not to say something than to make a mistake when doing it, you know? So careful there. And yes, I don't know if you have any questions about that. Okay. Now here's some grammar that you can review, something that I've personally seen people struggle with, especially in the first task, but throughout the whole speaking section overall. So unfortunately, we don't have time to go through this, to go through grammar, but you can do it on your own, you know? So I'm just gonna give you a list and you can check, you know, check it out, see if you have this mastered or not. And in case you don't, then maybe practice a bit, because it's something that is really common to make mistakes on this task. So the first thing is comparatives and superlatives. So you know how you're always comparing, like working alone is better, is easier, more productive, longer, faster. So those words try to, have the right grammar there. I've seen people make mistakes like more easier or more longer or more long. Okay, so you should avoid making those mistakes, especially since it's something that you're gonna have to use a lot. The same goes with gerunds versus the infinitive form. So working alone is better, right? You don't say work alone is better, or I prefer work. You say I prefer to work or I prefer working. So gerunds and infinitives, something I've seen. The use of the indefinite article, the, or no article. So some people will say something like, I don't know, the people work 1/3 of their lives, and the students complete a lot of assignments or a lot of the homework. So usually when you're talking about something in general, like people in general, students in general, assignments in general, you don't need to use the article the, right? You don't need any article in there. So that's what I mean with the use of the indefinite article. Careful there. It's not the same as in Spanish. I think that's why people tend to make mistakes when using it. The same irregular plurals, children, child, person, people, women, women, and non-count nouns, I would say, like homework, you don't say homeworks, or furniture, you don't say furnitures, or information, you don't say informations. So maybe careful there. Conditional sentences that always help. They are good grammar to use. The 0, first, second, third, if you want. And vocabulary, try to check out some vocabulary related to the topics that you'll find, So, okay, any questions so far? Oh, the grammar, I'm gonna tell you something else. Okay, so as for vocabulary, what I was gonna say is, of course, we don't know what exactly you'll have, in each of the questions. We don't know what they're gonna be asking you for in the independent one. Maybe they ask you for something that you haven't seen before, something that's not close to any practice set or practice test that you have taken. But the chances are you will have something, among the common topics that you have. So for example, in the independent one, as I was saying, you have work, academic life, you get relationships, you get technology, environment, you get finance, maybe. Okay, so in question 2, you'll have something about college. It's always college life. In question 3, business, psychology, sometimes biology, maybe. So if you have some vocabulary related to those topics, or if you read some articles, have some ideas in mind, then believe me, that's going to help you big time when you're answering the questions. Not only for vocabulary, but also for making up ideas, in the first task. So I will send you this list that I have, but it's not completely updated. I'm going to update it probably this week and add some more words. But here you have an idea of some words that you might find useful. So hold on. Okay. So as I was saying, I'll send you this link now. And of course, you can add some more words. You can look them up yourself. Here's something about work, college, business, but you can add some more topics. So here are some topics to add. So for example, relationships, environment, what I was telling you about. So maybe you can check out some more words. But I'll send you this right now. Okay, guys. So with that being said, I don't know if you now have any questions before we move on to the example? Is everything okay? Clear?
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
Yes, teacher.
All right, guys, so let's try to work on an example. So can anybody please read this question?
Example, task 1. Do you prefer to study at home or in a library? Provide the specific details to support your explanation.
Okay, so that's the question, right? You have two options, studying at home or studying in a library. And what you need to do is choose one of them and support that idea. So, okay, the first thing I'll say is make sure that when you're when you're answering the question, make sure that you have a strong position. So you're just choosing one of the options and only giving information that supports that one. Okay, so for example, if you say I prefer to study at home, you tell me why, maybe, okay, I'm not gonna give you examples, but maybe you explain why. Try not to say anything that is opposing to that idea, okay? So I prefer to study at home, maybe it's more quiet and stuff. Don't say something like, however, there are some cases in which I would prefer to study in a library for this and that reason, okay? If you're choosing studying at home, then that's everything you're gonna talk about. Or don't compare and contrast your options, don't be like, well, I think that studying at home has its benefits, but studying in a library may also be a good idea if you are, I don't know, if you have a library in school. So don't do that. Choose one of the options and only give information that supports that one. Okay. Now, what do you guys think in this case? Which one would you choose? Home or a library?
Home.
Home, okay. Now, can anybody give me a reason why is home better?
Yeah, I can concentrate better there.
Okay, you can concentrate better. All right. Okay, now something else. You know that in the question, they don't ask you for a specific number of reasons, right? They're not saying you need to use or give 2 reasons or 2 arguments to support this. So it's up to you how many reasons you give. You can give 1 or you can give 2, or you can give more, but I think 1 or 2 is would be suitable for this task since you only have 45 seconds. I couldn't tell you which one is better. I personally believe that it's better to just focus on one idea always and try to elaborate on that one. So try to explain, you can add more, you can have a longer example and elaborate. You can have a conclusion too, if you will. But some people are really good with time and then just finish the whole argument and example in 30 seconds. So if that's your case and you always end up with extra time, maybe you can give two reasons, right? So it depends. And that's why you need to practice, because otherwise you're not going to figure out what works for you. So, okay, so in this case, just for practicing, let's think of 2. Now, can anyone give me another reason why studying at home would be better?
It's more comfortable.
Okay, nice. Comfortable. All right, perfect. Another thing, if you're gonna give 2, make sure that they are different from each other. In this case, they are, so nice. But if you were to say something like, you can concentrate better and you have no distractions, then that will be kind of the same, And if you do that, then it's just gonna make you sound like you're repeating too much. So you're being redundant. So try not to do that. And finally, you need to give examples, at least one example, in details. You know, that's what they mean with details. So you need to get as specific as you can be. If you look at the questions, you'll see that most of them ask you for examples or details. So hold on. Okay, so as you can see, in most of them, they ask you. So illustrate your argument with reasons supporting details, or include some examples and details to support your answer. Give some specific details to support your answer. So they always ask for that, you know, and you really want to give examples whenever you can. Now, I have to say there are some cases in which it may be harder when they don't directly ask for something personal and it's something like, I don't know, maybe like some health experts suggest that all liquids should be eliminated from one's diet. So it might be harder to give examples. Just try to get specific in those cases, but whenever you can, whenever it's something personal, something that you can, you know, talk about you, like, do you prefer to attend classes in the morning? Do you prefer to exercise right after you wake up or to go on this diet? Then try to give examples. And I think I've said this before when we were looking at the writing with some of you guys, but anyhow, for the new ones, you can give personal examples, which could be stories, experiences in the past, or routines also in the simple present. So you can say something like, yesterday, or to illustrate, yesterday I was studying in a library and I couldn't concentrate since, I don't know, people were talking and somebody was doing some research. So I feel like I don't know, I didn't learn as much. And today I failed this test. So if I hadn't been in a library, if I had been at home, maybe I would have gotten a better grade. So you can tell that experience that you had in the past, or if you just feel like using the simple present, you can just talk to me about a routine that you have or something that you do usually, you know? So whenever I have a huge test, I always study at home since I have all the materials I need or the tools I need to use, whatever. So it depends on what you need to do, but it's a personal example in the first person. You can also have a general one when you talk about things in general, like when you are at home, you can do this, you can use your printer, you can decide what time to study. You don't have to spend money commuting or whatever. So that's a general example. In second person, you can use conditionals. Just try to be specific. And you always have the option of giving facts. So making up something like people who go to, or students who study in a library have been demonstrated to maybe obtain lower grades, or yes, lower grades it will be, right? So you can also make up something up. Okay, guys, so any questions about that? About the examples? Okay, now can anyone give?
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, Lucia, go ahead.
How I live alone, I can have silence around me so I can concentrate better.
Okay, I like that, the fact that you live alone. All right. So if you were saying, I prefer in a library, you could say I live with 2 kids. So they're playing around. Okay, nice, Lucia, thank you. So now that we're done with that, as for your response, you just need to follow the structure of an argumentative speech. And that is, you have an introduction in which you're directly answering the question. So, you know, to the question, the answer. So if they ask, what do you prefer? You could say, I definitely say that I prefer, or that studying at home works better for me, or that I prefer to study at home, or that if I had the chance, I would try to study at home. Just try to answer the question as directly as possible in the introduction. Okay? Of course, you can change these words, you can say something else. Try to avoid saying, I think, maybe, that wouldn't, something else would sound better. So here are some phrases you could use. For example, like, in my opinion, from my point of view, personally, to be honest, if you ask me, I would say, I believe, as far as I'm concerned. So there are many alternatives to I think, and I know it's hard, but it's just practice. So that's for your intro. And then if you have decided to give 2 arguments, then you just explain them using transitions, of course, like first, studying at home gives you the chance to concentrate better, to learn more, to pay attention, to focus. A good example of this is, and then you say, I live alone, so I don't have anybody there that's going to bother me or that makes noise. So, I don't know, I have the silence I need to study and prepare for my tests. And that's the example. And then you move on to the next one. So furthermore, what's the other one? Furthermore, for me, it's more comfortable to study at home as I can do it from my bed. I can use my own tools. I can do it whenever I want without having to worry about going to the library. And then you say, for instance, and then you can tell me all this time that you needed to study for this test. So basically, you just follow that structure. Introduction, the argument, and the example. And it's the same if you just have one: introduction, argument, and example. So I definitely say that this is better since I can concentrate better to illustrate, and then your example. Now the conclusion is not necessary, but in case you have extra time and you don't know what to say or you're getting stuck, just go ahead and give one. Could be something short, like, in short, that's why I believe that, or that's why I always try to study at home. So not necessary, but in case you have extra time, you can do one. Okay. So that's it. I don't know if you have any questions now. No questions?
No, teacher.
Okay. By the way, if you're wondering how it works, how it's going to be in the actual test, so everything's with a timer. So you can actually look at the time in order to manage it better. First, you will get the instructions. Maybe we can set. So first, you will get the instructions, something like, in this question, you will be asked about a familiar topic. You will be given 15 seconds to prepare and 45 to speak. And then you get the question. So you get the question, you read it, and then they give you 15 seconds. So they are like, starting now, you will have 15 seconds to prepare your response. And you start preparing. After the 15 seconds are done, and you will be able to look at the timer during the 15 seconds as well, they will say something like, you can begin speaking after the beep, and a beep will sound, and then you need to start speaking. And again, you will be looking at the timer all along. So hold on. Right here. So the timer will be running there. So you don't have to worry too much about, going over or making it in time. But of course, I think it's practice. Once you practice, you'll realize that you're gonna know for how long you should be giving your, explaining your argument, giving the example. You're gonna get used to the idea of, like, obviously you're not gonna be counting the words, But I think subconsciously you're gonna be used to the idea of having those 45 seconds to speak. You know, so it's just practice. Okay. Now, if you don't have questions, then maybe we can practice. We can try and answer some questions.
I just have one quick question.
Sure.
So is it possible to take notes, but must be in a paper and with a pen? It's not possible in the computer?
Yes, that's correct. So for the whole test, in the listening, in the writing, because you'll also need to take notes, and here in the speaking, you are allowed to take notes. It depends. I mean, how you take them is going to depend on where you're taking it. So if you're taking it at home, then you need to have a whiteboard or a transparent sheet and a marker in a white marker, and you're gonna be taking notes, yes, on the transparent sheet or on the board. And if you're taking it at a test center, it's gonna be on a piece of paper with a pen, and you need to ask for the paper to the proctor that's gonna be there. But yes, of course, you cannot take it in the computer. I think that if you're taking it at home, then your computer is going to be monitored by the proctor, so it's going to be kind of controlled by the evaluator. So no, you cannot take digital notes. And in fact, I would say that for this task, especially, it's quite hard to take notes because you only get 15 seconds to do that, you know? In the other tasks, maybe you can take notes, but in this one, it gets hard.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Any other question?
Teacher, how do we do to have the test on a center?
When you're registering for the test through the website, you need to choose. They ask you to choose whether you want to take it at home or at a test center. I don't know if that option is still available because that was because of the pandemic. So since things got better, I don't know until when you're going to be able to take it at home. But when you're registering, they give you the two options. So you need to select whether you want to take it at home or at a test center, and there you can choose.
Thanks.
So yes. Any other question? Okay, so let's try to work on this question. This one goes, do you prefer to have an early dinner around 4 or 5 p.m. or to have a late dinner around 8 or 9 p.m.? Provide specific details to support your explanation. So what would you guys prefer, early or late dinner? You'll have 15 seconds to prepare your responses. Okay, guys. So now, is there anybody who would like to try? Can anyone try? Anyone wants to go first? Give it a try. Should I choose? Maybe Ana Belén? Come on.
Okay.
Okay. So you can go ahead.
I will definitely say that I prefer to have dinner late because I work until 6 a.m. and then I have to get at home, and I have to be more comfortable to enjoy my meal. That's why I enjoy better if I have time. Also, I always get hungry late at night, so I don't have to eat twice and get fat. So that's why I prefer to eat late at night.
Okay, all right, well done, Lorena. I think that was really cool to be your first try. So I see that it's working for you to have 2 reasons. I don't know if you improvised the second one, but it was really cool. So you said, I work until late and I also get hungry at night. And 2 reasons. So something I could say, try not to have like a short conclusion for each reason if you're gonna give 2. So after the first one, just move on quickly to the second one. Don't say that's why at the beginning. You can leave that till the end. And if you want, you could have given an example maybe. You kind of were very specific, but try to maybe leave some things for example. So for instance, at the beginning, if you say, I work until 6 p.m., maybe you can say, I work until late. And then you can say, for example, I usually get home at 6 p.m. So maybe you can leave that for example. Or also tell a story. Maybe today I got home at this time and I ate this thing for dinner. Okay.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Anybody else? Anyone wants to try this one? Maybe Roger?
Okay, teacher.
Okay.
I usually say that I prefer to dinner early at 4 or 5 because I can sleep better and my body doesn't feel so good if I ate dinner late. Also, I practice meditation at night, and when I eat dinner late, I cannot focus so good as I'd like to want. So I prefer to eat dinner at early.
Okay, nice. So again, you have 2 reasons. I think that's working for you guys. Careful, I would have given an example if I were you. I like you're using conditionals, you use the transition also. Careful with some grammar, the tenses. Eat in the simple present, ate in the past, right? So if I eat dinner, or when I eat dinner in the simple present, and maybe some adverbs as well. So I cannot focus so well instead of focus so good, or feel so well instead of feel so good. You know? And in general, try to have some alternatives for words like good or bad or important or because or the quantifiers as well, like a lot. You can maybe say several, many, plenty of. So yes. Okay, guys. All right. Anybody else would like to go? Yes, Milenka?
Yes, I would like to try to improve my speaking, please.
Okay, of course. You can go.
Okay. Yes, I would definitely prefer to have dinner early, since it is demonstrated that it's better for health. Actually, when I have dinner late, sorry, I get to sleep very well. So definitely, I would rather to have dinner early. Sorry, I didn't practice my speaking very well, so I really need to improve this.
Okay, Milenka, but I wouldn't say it was bad at all. I think it was actually really It's a good answer, good
I
response.
get, I got nervous, but I need to practice. Yes.
Okay. Yes, that happening. That can happen. Practice helps. Yes, it helps, but it also, you gotta set your mind in that way so that you know that. I don't know.
Okay.
But I think it was great. So maybe some things I could say. With grammar careful, so for example, the structure I would rather, which is something I like right away. So instead of saying I prefer, sometimes you could say I would rather or I'd rather. And when you want to use that, careful, I'd rather, and then you need the simple form of the verb, right? I'd rather eat dinner late. And if you want to talk about the other option as well, you could say, I'd rather do this over that or instead of that.
Okay.
You can use that structure. And yes, I wouldn't say I got a message. Let's see.
Okay.
Orlando,
Thank you
that
for the
was
observations.
good, Milenka. Okay.
Thank you for the
Good.
observations. We practice.
Okay, it was good. It was great. All right. Okay, guys. Anybody else or any comments? Any questions? Okay, guys. So tomorrow you'll get to practice and also you'll practice with me on Thursday. So get a lot of practice coming. And I think that's going to be useful because there's some things that we need to say, we need to see still. There are some other types of questions, maybe a bit harder. So we're going to be working on that next class. Now, before you go, please don't forget the daily survey, and I'll be seeing you guys on Thursday. Hope you have a nice night.
Thank you so
Bye.
much.
Bye-bye, guys.
Teacher,
Bye.
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 Thank you.
Thank you, teacher. Goodbye.
Bye, Louis.
Thank you, teacher. Goodbye.
Bye.
Thank you, teacher. Goodbye.
Bye-bye.